All right, I made a vid on my little rant on Ned Flanders and value judgments, but I guess the sound was kind of shit, and we'll see how this one goes. I wanted to make a quicker one on making value judgments and why you shouldn't give up your reason and your thinking in order to delude yourself into falling into tribal lines and acting like Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or Donald Trump, um, whoever it is, whoever your tribe of choice is, deluding yourself into believing that these politicians are just, amazing people to look up to. It's not to say that there aren't people that are in politics or in other walks of life that are worth looking up to, but there's no reason to lie to yourself about these people. If you want to vote for them, whatever, vote for them, but don't lie to yourself about it. I mean, I've seen really intelligent people, like doctorate level people, talk about how excited they are for Kamala and a strong and I'm sorry, I'm not even trying to be cliche, but like strong independent woman and um and how she was telling Mike Pence I'm speaking and blah blah blah. I don't, and I'm not trying to mock that or anything because I think that those are great qualities in women, and I applaud that. But that's not what Kamala Harris is, and that's not what she. I mean, maybe that's a part of it too, but you're being pretty selective and looking at her if those are the things that you see when you look at her. And so I just have a couple of things here. And keep in mind, this is in the context of we're in this social movement where we're talking about our criminal justice system, police. She was a former DA. And I get tired of people making excuses for these types of people too. They have the power. And and they use it in ways, send people who have just hammer people with drug convictions and nonviolent crimes, and then they get out of office and they're like, "Oh, I was just doing my job." It's like, well, yeah, I guess you can say that, but you know, if you're gonna run for office and say you're gonna change things, well, I guess I personally expect better than that. If I were to be able to be the DA, if I were going to run on something, I would actually say, like, no, I'm not charging anyone with any, like, if anyone gets caught with marijuana unless they're doing something, like, other than pot, like or selling it to kids or something like nefarious, something that's actually bad. Like, no, I don't care about my conviction rate, like we're just not going to charge that. And but no, you get all these excuses for these people because they can't just look at them and be like, all right, I'm going to make a value judgment here. So anyways, let's look at her career a bit here. So starting out, we'll start out with Snopes here, and it's kind of funny how some of these fact checkers are just so left leaning that honestly I'm I'm uh, I'm trying to activate my most objective self in some of these things, and you read these fact checkers, and it's just like, are they trying to make excuses for her? So yeah, she dated Willie Brown, the mayor of San Francisco, when she was 29. I didn't check her age on that, but she's obviously younger than him. He was 60. Even Snopes says that in this article here. He was married at the time, but he was estranged from his wife. And basically, Snopes says, yeah, he did appoint her to two positions, but it was well after their relationship was over. So it's like, okay, you don't think that that still is a problem? And she did distance herself from him, but, of course she had to in order to, and it was something it was a very appropriate question to ask of her. But I mean, what's a 29-year-old woman dating a 60-year-old mayor? Like, a pretty short list of reasons to do that. It happens, sure. I mean, if you think it's about love and something else, that there wasn't some ulterior motive, and given when you look at the context of her behavior and the way that she conducts herself politically, I mean, she makes, I think personally, she makes Hillary Clinton look less manipulative, or she's on par with her. And some of the flip flopping. Yeah, if you look at it in that context, it's like, we can try and tell ourselves that it was just a, regular relationship, nothing to be gained. It wasn't a play to try and get her, try and improve her career. But really, I'll leave that for you to, I guess, think about. And so on to the next thing. So then eventually she was elected to the district attorney of San Francisco. And as I guess Biden criticized her during the Democratic debates, that her district attorney's office resulted in more than 1,000 drug cases being dismissed. And we'll get to the Tulsi Gabbard critique, but so that was accurate. So basically, what happened was, so there's some kind of crime lab situation. The San Francisco drug lab was shut down after a lead technician who testified on behalf of prosecutors on drug charges was found to have systematically mishandled the drug samples seized from suspects, even consuming some herself. That's it's funny. You see that in movies and you're like, does that really happen? Well, apparently it does. They get high off of the stuff that they seize. While the San Francisco Police Department was responsible for running the lab, not Harris's district attorney, a court ruled in 2010 the district attorney's office violated defendants' constitutional rights by not disclosing what it knew about the tainted drug evidence. Judge Ann Christine Masulo, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, wrote in her decision that prosecutors at the highest levels of the district attorney's office knew that Madden, I assume that Madden was the head drug lab tech, was not a dependable witness at trial and that there were serious concerns regarding the crime lab. So top levels of the district attorney's office, the highest levels of the district attorney's office, she's saying that she knew. She's saying that Kamala Harris knew. And they did it anyways. They convicted these people anyways, until it came out, and then these people were released, I take it, or the cases were finally dismissed. But yeah, locking people up on nonviolent drug charges, with sketchy lab. I mean, who knows? I don't know. I didn't dig deeper into what exactly was going on in this drug lab, but yeah, it was overlooked probably because she didn't want her conviction rate to suffer because of it. And it would have been a political hit to have taken. She denied that she was aware of the drug lab issues at the time and noted that her office implemented a Brady policy, whatever that is, after the drug lab scandal came to her attention. Dismissed 1,000 cases as a result. All right, so then we get to the Kevin Cooper case. So the Tulsi Gabbard critique that you may have seen on the internet about blocking evidence from someone that was on death row. So wait, I want to look at a different one here. Let's go to the Washington Post. So and a little bit of history on her stance on the death penalty. So step back just a minute here. So and on the whole flip-flopping thing, she was sworn in as the district attorney in San Francisco, and then a police officer was shot. And she ran her campaign, promised not to seek the death penalty, which she was at the funeral, and people apparently, or it looks like, she was announced 3 days before the shooting that, or after the shooting, she would not see the death penalty. So that was a pretty principled decision. Like, good on her. The police union and greater law enforcement, if you're against the death penalty, which I think is a bad idea. But let's see. Senator Dianne Feinstein got up for the congregation and said that basically threw under the bus. The special circumstance called for the death penalty, and then the police officer erupted in a standing ovation. And she said that she's not going to do it. I gave my word. I oppose the death penalty. I will honor my commitment despite the strong emotions about this case. Good on her. I would give her credit for that. But then here comes the flip-flopping. But 10 years later, an anti-death penalty advocates who praised her consistency in her conviction were confused when an opportunity to abolish capital punishment in the state arose. And Harris, who became California Attorney General in 2011, seemed to be on the other side of the aisle. Then came Chapter 2. In a scathing 2014 ruling, a federal judge in California ruled the state's death penalty to be unconstitutional, finding that prisoners were kept on death row for so long, many for decades, that it violated the Eighth Amendment's ban on cruel and unusual punishment. I mean, yeah, you're just having people sit there waiting to die for years, decades. Yeah, it's pretty effed up. U.S. District Court Judge Cormac J. Carney described California's execution system as arbitrary and dysfunctional. Despite her personal opposition, Harris had promised to enforce capital punishment in her official capacity during her run for Attorney General, and she followed through. So she appealed the court's decision because it's not supported by law and it undermines important protections that our courts provide to defendants. I don't really understand that. This flawed ruling requires appellate review. So basically, she used her authority to push back against this judge who was trying to abolish the death penalty in the state of California. So yeah, she appealed, and in the end, Harris won the case, and the death penalty continued in California until Tyrant. Just kidding, but yeah, basically, in my opinion, Governor Gavin Newsom took office this year and announced a moratorium, but good on his part on that. Credit to him. So, anyway, she kind of changed her tune there, and like, your attorney general, and she kind of said that it's like her duty, and that she was duty bound to fight for her client, the California Department of Corrections. I think that's, I mean, I don't know what she actually said. That's what this Washington Post says here, but it's an odd justification, I guess, in my opinion. You stood on principle on it, and then you get the authority to be the attorney general of the state, and then you flip-flop on it. You had the chance. I mean, you'd think that if you wanted to stand on principle and then you get the authority to actually do something about it, and then you undermine the movement to abolish the death penalty, and then you say that you're duty bound for your client, the California Department of Corrections. I guess I'd think that you would say that you're duty bound to the people that you were standing in principle for, but yeah, that's kind of where I get, the politicians seem to come out. And then, but the one death penalty, so here's where Tulsi Gabbard, the part where Tulsi Gabbard was kind of roasting her on the Democratic debates. The death penalty controversy here is not fully explained until now. It's the case of Kevin Cooper, a man on death row who proclaimed his innocence for the past 35 years, but who was denied essential DNA testing while Harris was the state's attorney general. That's the third chapter, which Gabbard opened on Wednesday night. That was the debates. This is an old article. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until court forced her to do so. There's no excuse for that. So she was running for Senate. Kevin Cooper is the guy's name. Attorneys filed a 235-page petition wanting the DNA testing that would supposedly exonerate him. He'd been on death row since 1985, for Christ's sake. this guy, and so it turns out this guy is still on death row right now, and he's, at least what I just read looking around on this, yeah, anyways, we'll get to it. He was convicted of hacking a family to death, including their 10-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old neighbor, but curiously an 8-year-old witness who survived initially. I'm sorry. Let's just go with what they're writing here, because it was a lot of stuff to keep track of here. But curiously, an 8-year-old witness initially described the perpetrators as 3 white men. Brown and blonde hairs were found in the victim's hands, and Nicholas Kristoff reported in a 2018 investigative column, or as the New York Times, Nicholas Kristoff reported, Cooper was black and had an afro. A woman called the police, this is additionally, a woman called police to say she believed her boyfriend, a convicted murderer, was involved in the slayings after finding his bloody coveralls and noticing a missing hatchet. Yes, police still pursued Cooper, who they found in hiding near a family's home after he'd escaped from prison on a burglary conviction. Sheriff's deputies couldn't find any of Cooper's fingerprints or hair at the scene, however. So, you know, he wasn't exactly a stand-up dude, but he didn't. It doesn't seem like he killed this person. I mean, most of the articles I'm reading, and I haven't dug deep into this case, but it doesn't seem like there's very compelling evidence that this guy killed anyone. And certainly, you know, even one of the family members I read in one of these articles said that, you know, like, I think it was 3 or 4 people were killed. And, you know, they're saying that one person did all this, and it just didn't seem to add up. So multiple federal judges would years later, multiple federal judges would question whether the evidence the state did have on Cooper was planted. Blah blah. 4 judges, appeals from the Ninth Circuit Court, joined Judge William A. Fletcher in dissent began the state of California may be about to execute an innocent man. His execution was ultimately stayed. Well, I guess I didn't catch this part when I was going through. Judge William Fletcher said during a lecture in 2013 he's on death row because the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department framed him. In 2016, Harris's office refused to allow the DNA testing Cooper's attorneys asked for. Then Governor Jerry Brown also did nothing. Despite Gabbard's claims, the court never forced Harris to do the test. Instead, Gavin Newsom took office and allowed the DNA testing to move forward, and I think this was February of 2019. This is an article from... Oh, this article will be 2020. Well, whatever. February 2019, February 2020, something like that. I guess the only question is, I think I have it in this other article here. So after Kristoff published this column, she called him to say, I feel awful about this. And Senator Harris ran in office. She takes responsibility for all the actions, mostly elected around this case. Occurred before her terms in office, but this specific request was made to and decided by lower levels of attorneys. Sorry, I'm not buying this deflection. Like, if you're on death, if you got people on death row, like, and you're just saying, oh yeah, I let my underlings handle it. Sorry, that's, even if that is your excuse and that's what happened, I don't buy it. Sorry. It's just nonchalant about, you know, this person who said they were against the death penalty, and then now you're saying that you just let your underlings take care of that specific request. No. You're not fooling me on that one. So yeah, when the case was brought to her attention, she publicly called for further DNA testing. She's always been a strong proponent of DNA testing. So now you see kind of where I'm drawing the Hillary Clinton comparisons. She's seems pretty shifty depending on what position she's holding. Things change. So yeah, she did block Gavin Newsom for all the things that I dislike about him. Apparently did a couple things that saved her ass, and yeah, he got this DNA testing going. Let's see if I have this here about what's actually going on with this Kevin Cooper dude right now. Oh yeah, here's the surviving victim's grandmother told in 48 hours, and I still can't believe that one person could do that to all my family. There's 5 of them. I just know they didn't stand in line saying I'm next. So she's saying, like, I find it hard to believe that one person killed all 5 of them. And then there's other witnesses saying that it was like 3 or 4 white or Latino men. Yeah, seen 3 or 4. 8-year-old Joshua Ryan was lucky to survive the slashed throat, so that's where I got that from. He initially told the social worker at the hospital he'd seen 3 or 4 white or Latino men. After multiple visits by a sheriff's investigator, said he'd only seen the shadow of one man. So, you know how that goes. They go in for an interview, and 8-year-old kid, I mean, very, very pliable as far as what he's going to, like, shaping what's going to come out of his mouth and what he's going to believe. He's been traumatized. You put him in a room with some adults who are looking to convict someone, like, it's a recipe for disaster and for getting really poor information to build a case on. Yeah, so this process is still dragging out. What's this article from? June 19th, 2020. Yeah, so this dude's still sitting on death row waiting for this DNA evidence, for the love of God. And he was, I think this was in 1985. Yeah. I mean, seriously. And in the context of all of this, so police brutality and criminal justice, and here's my overall point of this whole thing is, like, Kamala Harris, why are we, like, there's no need to act excited about her. She's done a shit job on the whole thing that we're talking about, on the whole subject for our country right now. I just can't take, like, the NFL, you watch an NFL game, you watch an NBA game, pretty much all on social media, vote, vote, vote. Like I said in my other video, they're not talking about Republicans, and that's fine. I don't really care. But honestly, I find it insulting that I'm supposed to, and, like, I hear other intelligent friends and people, and I feel like I'm weird even, like, the popular thing right now is like, oh, we need to vote Democrat to get all these things fixed. It's like, look, make a value judgment and say if you think they're going to be better on this issue and they sucked in the past or whatever and they're just going to be better, but I don't think there's any reason to get self-righteous about it. And I don't know what the excitement is about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I could do a different video on Joe Biden. I mean, he's got some skeletons in his closet too. He's done some plagiarizing. Is that the word? Yeah, plagiarizing. Where he took up some speeches from other people. And 94 crime bill, you can say, well, that it's unfair to criticize it because that was from a different time. But that such is the work of doing policy, is not setting up people for the unintended consequences of putting through irresponsible legislation. I'm sorry, but there's nothing different about drugs than that there is about drugs now, and you could have still seen that nonviolent offenders don't need to go to jail for 20 or 30 years or 10 years or 5 years even. So anyways, and I mean the same could go for Donald Trump. I said that in my other video too. I think the older generation, like, they have a rosy picture of Donald Trump. But most people my age are just like, yeah, he's a pretty shit person. He banged a stripper while he was, I think, Melania or one of his ex-wife or someone was pregnant at the time. So yeah, I mean, he's not a good person. But you also have to understand too, like, he's done some good things from a conservative standpoint. But yeah, he's not. Make value judgments. Don't try and delude yourself into believing junk about these people when they're not good, upstanding. Like, don't make Kamala Harris be this feminist hero when she's like, if you ask me, she's the opposite of what I would want my daughter to be. In many ways. So, maintain your reasoning, maintain your critical thinking, make value judgments. Don't delude yourself just so that you can be part of the tribe. That's all I got to say on that.